Rules and Open Government Committee meeting February 13th, 2013. Any changes to our agenda order? None. February 19th council meeting agenda. Let's take a look.
That one, we don't have one.
That was easy. February 26th council agenda. Anything on page 1 to talk about? Page 2 or 3? Page 4 or 5? Page 6 or 7? I notice there are 2 items on regarding items in Japantown. Do those need to be heard together? One's in the evening and one is not.
They're really not related. And the 4.1, which is Japantown Corporation Yard term sheet, is the one that we'd expect community input on.
Okay. Anything else on 6 or 7? Page 8 or 9? Page 10 or 11. I've got a question on whether or not we should have some sort of a time certain on the phase out of the EPS, expanded polystyrene foam, which looks like EPSF, whatever, never mind. Polystyrene, one form or another.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the feedback we had gotten from staff is that the restaurateurs in particular, having an obvious interest in this topic, had asked that to the extent possible it be timed between the lunch and dinner rush. So if that were possible, recognizing the challenges of that.
That might be a little too early. So 2:30 or 3, I think, would be appropriate.
3 o'clock. All right. Sold? Okay.
That's why you're the mayor, sir.
And then we have item 8.1 is some actions related to a law enforcement services grant spending plan. We need a sunshine waiver of some kind on that.
Yes, we need a 14-day waiver. They will be out in the normal packet to Friday.
So it'll get 10 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, 9.2 on the successor agency, I'm told that we can drop that. It doesn't need to go back to the board.
That's the agency city reimbursement agreement?
Yes.
Anything else on 12 or 13? or 15? Looks like the longest agenda item language on 11.6 zoning code stuff. Undoubtedly, we'll have to have some technical clarifications of that. It's just so long it couldn't possibly all be in there.
Yeah. I just had a question, and just maybe the city attorney could look at it between now and the time this comes. I recall from my previous work that wholesale auto dealers have different categories by state law, and there are some where state law requires specific parking spaces to be available specifically for the use of that dealer. And I'm concerned, I just want to make sure that we've looked at all that, that they're in the vehicle code, I believe, or the business and professions code, that specify, because some are classified as brokers, some are just wholesalers, different areas, because I think that'll have a huge impact to neighborhoods. And I just want to make sure we get it right in the first go through.
All right. We'll make sure we have that addressed.
Anything else on page 14 or 15? We have one request for addition. Councilor Councilman's travel to Washington, D.C., March 9/13. And,
Just a correction
yes,
below. I think it's Councilmember Constant, right? Instead of Councilmember Liccardo.
Yeah, that's a typo.
Yes.
in the text,
People confuse us all the time, it's the hair.
body shape.
Constant.
Any other additions or corrections?
Motion to approve with the 14-day sunshine waiver and the ad.
Motion is to approve with the changes in the sunshine
Second.
waiver. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. That's approved. We have nothing under upcoming study session agendas. Staff, any feedback from Monday's study session priority discussion on
Not-
agendas and things?
Not at this point. We're still reviewing the timing and outcome of the voting. We would be happy to report back on that next week.
Okay. Legislative update, we have nothing state or federal at this time. Meeting schedules, nothing to talk about. Public record, anything public record committee would like to pull for discussion? Have a request to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to note item F. Let's see. The letter regarding the defining of a quorum for boards and commissions. That has been a topic of discussion between our office and the city clerk, so we'd be happy to follow up on that either as a referral to staff or also independently in the work that will be coming back on boards and commissions.
Okay. Have one request to speak, Martha O'Connell.
Is it on? Okay. In November of 2009, the Senior Commission recommended that the municipal code be changed to reflect the quorum did not include vacant seats. And I believe the Human Rights Commission did the same thing, but it's been so long that I can't remember. I know there were a couple of other ones. At the time, I was told that some council members were concerned that a bunch of renegade commissioners would get control of the commission because there were a bunch of vacant seats and take some dastardly action. Well, if they're not quasi-judicial, the only thing you can do is write a letter. So I don't think you guys, from watching you for several years, I don't think you're going to be intimidated by a letter. You can just note and file. So hopefully now that we're doing the consolidations, you'll seriously look at this and remove vacant seats from the quorum. For example, on the Senior Commission, we had 2 people resign. Some folks, they're caregivers, their spouse is elderly, they resign, and then we're stuck with open seats. So please consider this under the consolidation plan. Thank you.
Includes public testimony. Is there a motion?
Motion note and file.
Motion is to note and file. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed?
And that included the staff thing that Ed mentioned.
Yeah, noting the staff's comment on the quorum issue. Takes us down to Section G. First item is G2, and that was a referral to staff on the business tax amnesty program from a meeting or 2 ago to come back, think about it, and come back with some recommendations. Councilmember Constant.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, we've all received a lot of input on this, and I know that this is a program that we've had in the past, and a lot of people feel taken by surprise on an issue that they were just unaware of that has always been here. And let me just say that I really have a concern with selecting 1 or 2 categories of people and saying, your business is different and you get treated differently than other people that are in businesses. And, you know, from previous comments I've made, I don't necessarily agree with the way our business license system is structured, and I think there's ways that we could improve it. But I think we're doing a disservice to start treating different categories of income earners differently, because for every argument you can make for one, you could probably make for others. And I'm going to take, for example, the sporting officials, because that one is listed in the memo, and we've gotten probably the largest amount of input on it. There's no doubt that the sporting officials provide a service to the youth and youth sports, and they make money that some would say is incidental to providing the service. Other would say that the money is, or the service is incidental to money. Whatever the reason is, they're making money. And I can see while the service part is important, but you could take that and simply say a company that offers tutoring services to children now should be exempt as well, or a hospice care worker who is providing services to people in the end stages of life is providing a valuable service. And we open up this Pandora's box of now us determining what are good service businesses and what are less good business services. So one of the things that I've mentioned in the past, and I think we should be looking at approaching, is simply coming up with a threshold that if you earn X number of dollars or less, you simply are not defined as a business in the city of San Jose. If you make more than X but less than Y, your business will qualify as an exemption from the business license tax. And if you make more than that, you pay the entire business license. What that does is that takes us out of the discussions of who do we treat differently from others. Because for no matter what reason that you can come up with on why someone should be exempt from our program, you can make that similar or exact argument for maybe a dozen other specific businesses. And I don't think we do us or the public any good if we start setting up rules that are fairly arbitrary like that.
Okay, well, I think the staff recommendation just to draw the line based on dollar amounts as opposed to categories is a fairly simple approach. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing public service or not. If you're not making much money, you know, that's a good way to do it and a simple way to administer it. I don't know if staff had anything to add beyond their memorandum.
What we're proposing is to eliminate the exemption fee entirely as of January 1 of the current fiscal year, or the current calendar year. So if somebody hasn't paid the exemption fee in the past as part of the amnesty program, they would still be responsible for paying that $38 a year for the period between January 2009 and December of 2012. But we do have in here, if you would like us to consider exempting the sports officials for being responsible for that back period of time on the exemption fee, you can direct us to do that. But if we were to look at a back period of time and look at any kind of, you know, not collecting that or looking at any kind of refund process or something like that, that's going to have some fiscal implications to it that we would need to drill in a little bit deeper, but we do collect about $270,000 a year in exemption fees. So,
Just, if I could, one clarification. The recommendation is that that be brought forward to the full council
right.
on March 5th. And that, in particular, from a time sensitivity standpoint, the additional time for filing of the exemptions as well.
Well, I'm not interested in writing refund checks for anybody.
Okay,
The cost of writing the refund checks would probably exceed the value of the refund,
exactly.
and we'd have to bear that, and, you know, we don't need to solve that problem that way.
Right.
The problem that we're faced with today, I think, gets solved with a recommendation just to change the exemption so that you don't have to pay it, and we don't have to process it, except in a minor way. Councilor Constant?
I also want to make sure we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because there's a difference in someone who gets a 1099 for $750 earned in a year and someone who is making $22,000 in sales a year. There's a definite distinction between the two. And as somebody who has had business licenses both for businesses that were in and not in the exemption program, I think that if you are in business, you should pay your business license tax. But if you, I think setting a lower threshold, quite frankly, I think 22,000 is too high of a threshold to just say, we're not going to do that. But I would be very comfortable with a, I don't know, $7,500 or a $10,000. If you make less than that, you are, just as far as the city defines it, you are not a business. And, you know, and something like that would be what I would.
Yeah, I think the definition, it's 22,000 by formula. It's a poverty index,
Yes.
isn't it?
2 times the poverty.
2 times the poverty index. So we don't put a number out there. We use a formula, and so we can either come with a fixed number or to come up with a different 1.5 times or a different formula.
So I didn't know that this was 2 times. I probably would have known if I read the whole memo. But if, if that's the case, perhaps businesses that are at poverty level or below are categorically exempt, and we do not classify them as a business. Businesses that are between poverty level and 2 times poverty level are exempt, can file a hardship exemption for the $38, and anybody above is a business. That's the type of thing that I would like to see. I think it's the most fair, and it keeps us out of picking and choosing who gets treated how.
Yeah, I mean, we can go back and look at some of those. The challenge for us is going to be how we do that data sharing with the Franchise Tax Board is we don't get the dollar amount. We just get the fact that they filed the form. And so what we're really trying to do is that if they would fall into that category, that we would reach out to them, and if they're exempt and not, we want them to fill out the form so we can get them into our database and then not bother them again. Otherwise, they'll get bothered from us every year just as part of our natural process of trying to outreach and make sure everybody who's supposed to pay the tax pays the tax. What you are pointing out is the difficulties with the business tax ordinance that's in place and the Muni Code, and our strong desire to look at ways to simplify it, and hopefully we can get some direction from the council to look at, doing some kind of modernization that kind of brings into the current what is a business and what is a definition of a business, because as you can imagine over time, that really has changed with people doing more types of consulting work that really didn't exist when the code was written decades ago.
And just kind of on a separate but very related topic, I would like to see our efforts put into all those businesses in other cities that come in and do business on a regular basis in our city. And I can think of dozens of them, some that I've specifically checked, and they don't have San Jose business license. Those are the businesses that we know are thriving and making a lot of income in San Jose, but they have their primary principal place of business outside the city, and they skirt it, even though we all know that if they work more than X number of days, they're required to have them.
Councilor Oliverio?
Yeah, Councilmember Constant, without saying a company name, can you describe the type of company that would do business, be located outside and do the business? I mean, someone installs shutters in houses, or?
Well, no, I'll give you a great example since we're talking about referees and youth. No secret, I used to own a photography business, and I did a lot of photography for schools. There are a lot of photography companies that were outside of the city of San Jose that have contracts to provide photography services to the schools in San Jose, yet their businesses are registered outside, so they don't have their business license here, and all their sales tax goes to the other city on hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales every year.
And then the feasibility of that, Julia Cooper?
As you can imagine, that does become very difficult to try to determine who those are. I mean, one way that we do determine is just to make sure the people that we're doing business with, as a city, as an employer, have a business tax in place, when we're doing business. So that's something that we try to do, but then trying to do those other kinds of outreaches. I mean, Huey is our manager of the business tax program, so he can probably explain a little bit how they try to do that outreach.
Yeah, council members, the challenge is to know who they are and what they're doing here. That's really the difficulty for us. We can get the databases from various sources. We can identify who actually is in San Jose, but the challenge is to knowing the businesses are coming to San Jose and doing business here. And that's a challenge, not just for San Jose, for all cities out there as well.
I imagine. And then the way you have the memo, Julia, if I was in this situation and I made less than $22,000, I would just mail proof to the City of San Jose Finance Department that I made less than $22,000. Staff would look at it. That's a verified document, notch it down, and then that's it.
Actually, what we're proposing is something even simpler than that. We're asking you to give us the 2 data points on your tax return and fill in the blank. And then we have the right to go back and ask you for the actual physical paper, but we're no longer going to even ask for the paper. So by filling that in, then we can determine whether it's even worth it calling you up to ask for the information. And we think we'll get more compliance, because then people won't having to send in parts of their tax return, which may make them apprehensive. So basically, it's just check the box, give us the numbers, and then we file it and put you in the system. And then hopefully, if you're in one of those categories that are permanently exempt, then we won't bother you again.
Oh, and then of course, I guess you would have to reserve some right to audit.
Yes, and that's in there, and they're signing it under penalty of perjury as well.
And so that covers that. But under Councilmember Constant, he was discussing regardless of job. that it's an exemption just based on dollars versus
Mhm.
whatever you do, whether you're teaching sign language out of your home to somebody or whatever.
Yeah, and that's how the exemption currently works. It's an income-based, but
Okay,
it's really for sole proprietors or partnerships. If you're actually operating a business, so to speak, where you might have employees, then you're not going to be in the exemption category. You're going to still owe the business tax.
but if I'm being paid someone, I'm a 1099,
Yes,
and I earn less than 22,000, then I'd be exempt.
correct.
Okay, and then I appreciate you pulling out the exact number. I know we said $250,000 last time here at the committee, and it's $270,000. And, if you wanted to getting rid of it altogether is the cost of 2 new police officers. I think it's just always important we put things in perspectives on how much things cost. So, thank you.
I have a question, I guess, for the city attorney, is if we were to divide this up the way, along the lines of a Councilmember Constance question, so we'd have, if you're less than $11,000 a year, you pay nothing, you check the box, and if we need to go audit, we can audit, but you're checking the box. If you're between $11,000 and $22,000 a year, then it's $38.
I think, as I understand Councilmember Constant, is the definition of doing business in San Jose, it doesn't get triggered until you make over $11,000. Once you're there, then you have this exemption.
Which you could apply for
that
if you
can
wanted
apply
to.
for the hardship exemption, and then above the 22 is,
The base
you have to pay it. But that's, then I'm looking to Julia just because the administration on that. I don't know what administrative burden that might.
Yeah, I mean, the $38 was the fee that we calculated to process the exemption process. It's not a category of the tax. The base tax is $150. So I think I'd need to talk a little bit more with Rick and the attorneys in his office to see how we would be able to, within the confines of the code, because it is a tax, so we have all those limitations associated with the tax, to see if we could do some bifurcation.
The definition right now is very broad on what's doing business in San Jose, and whether we capture everybody or not. And so we would have to tweak with the definition if you wanted to go that route. But we could look at that. I don't know if you want us to bring it back here or take it back to council with some ideas.
Councilor Oliverio?
Well, depending on the timeline, I'd prefer more defined item coming back to rules and then going on the council agenda versus putting something that's not fully defined and then coming to council. But tell me when that timeline is, because I thought there was some
Well, I
sense.
think March 5th was the day you were thinking going
Yeah.
to council, probably March 5th, 6th to come back here.
Yes, and one of our recommendations is to extend the amnesty program till the 31st of, or the end of May. I'm not exactly sure what the right date is because the weekends. And right now, it's expiring on March 29th. So we have to amend, I'm looking at Rick, we have to amend the ordinance, and then you have the 30-day and the second reading and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to end up with this limbo land, I think, with respect to.
Well, we can extend it and we do a retro.
Retro, okay.
And that's a separate item. If the council and the rules committee is still mulling it over, we can just come in with the standalone, extend the amnesty.
I mean,
I know you don't want to go that far in beyond May. I mean, that's.
yeah,
that's
May,
the
the
cutoff.
end of May is as far as we really want to go. But to the extent we're going to extend it, the sooner we get that information out, kind of the better it is from a, public relations standpoint and moving people along.
Okay, well, I've got some people who want to testify, and I'd be interested in the public testimony if anybody has an opinion about Councilor Constance's idea that we just define doing business starting at $11,000 a year or whatever the poverty level is. And so that creates two categories of lesser fees, one where there's nothing and one where you can file for an exemption. And so I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts about that. So when you give your public comments, if you want to comment on that, that would be helpful to me. Let's take that testimony now. Dwayne Morgan.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The second time I've come before you to talk about this officiating fee. Just a reminder, I do Assistant Commissioner of the Central Coast Section, representing 140 schools, 72,000 athletes. And we appreciate what you guys have done, embracing this idea, trying to solve this issue for our officials. Our officials volunteer their time for the most part. You saw a fee schedule from this. Saying it's a business, it is a profession that earns some money to pay for expenses. That's what officiating is. I traveled to Salinas last night to work a match. Got paid $80. Drove 100 miles up and back. Didn't make a whole lot of money after gas, time, and got a little food in my stomach. So it's a profession not making a lot of money. We would be in favor of a threshold, very much. I think it's a real good idea because it sets some limits. Also, I think the $38 fee, if you can do away with that for the officials' fees, that would solve a lot of problems. They're not making a lot, not making a living in this. It's not a business, it's a love for the sport and kids.
Mayor?
Thank you.
So what, since you run CCS, you have some spectrum of idea of what your officials make. So what's a spectrum of income from the person who works every weekend to the person that works every month?
If I can see specifically for me, I worked last Saturday from 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock. I made $165.
No, but I'm talking about in a year.
In a year, I get a form, my tax guy looks at it, he says you make $3,000 a year.
So you would fall under the $11,000, and you seem to officiate a lot.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's where most officials that have a regular job, and this is for a profession as far as helping kids. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good number.
Appreciate it, and I know you love the sports, but then there's also people that work with children that have disabilities and other matters that aren't officiators. But I think this threshold of money sounds a lot, to me, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and like I said, the $38, if that could go away somehow, some way, I think that would alleviate a lot of things also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elias Chamorro?
Good afternoon. Second time again, thank you for listening to me. I had a lot of ideas in my mind after talking to our very esteemed council person. Pete Constant, my mind is even going crazy. But one thing that I want to mention very quickly is that in the last meeting, I left here very positive because the term that was used, a nest was thrown out there, and we probably got the wrong people in the nest. We need to go through there and see who we want to exempt and who we do not want to exempt. And sometimes, and we're looking for equality, but sometimes the biggest disequality is when you are looking for equality. And I experienced that running a school, and when people start dividing money and all that, I said, well, we got to divide it equal among everybody, and not everybody's at the same spot or the same area. And I think that one thing you need to do, those people that you exempt, if you develop a criteria, follow that criteria, like working for a legitimate public schools and other, you could design your own, and those that meet those criteria, then they're exempt and they qualify, and just leave them alone. Not just for 1 year or two, but I'm looking for perpetual, long life, because this issue kept coming up. When I was in charge of athletics for Eastside Union High School District, and it's still coming up. And so that's basically my point at this time, and then maybe I'll have some more questions later on. Thank you.
Dan Hendricks?
Hi, thank you. I am Dan Hendricks, and you can see how I'm dressed, and I could probably stand here for 2 minutes and say nothing. You know how I feel about this subject, okay? But I won't, okay? But I do want to tell you the reason I'm here is because I wanted to let you put a face to the name and the emails that you've probably seen that I've been writing a lot of, okay? And it's nice to meet you, Julia, although I haven't emailed you, but I've got a lot of those memos right here, okay? In 2009, I was contacted by the city of San Jose for this exact same reason, okay? One of my fellow umpires was contacted in 2006. In 2009, I contacted Dean in the finance office, and Dean assured me in 2009 that I would be exempt and I would be left alone. Well, guess what? I wasn't, okay? You all know about the letter that I got in November of 2012. The reason I do this is, like he said, like Dwayne said, we do this for the love of it, okay? We don't do it for the money, all right? Yes, I have a doubleheader scheduled, and I will make a total of $132 for probably about 8 hours of my time to do that, okay? The other reason I'm dressed like I'm dressed right now is because when I'm done here, I'll be headed to Leland High School, where I and 8 other umpires will be working a scrimmage for no pay. Why do we do it? Because we want to be the best officials at the schools in Santa Clara Valley. And it's not just San Jose, okay? It's Los Gatos, it's Campbell, Saratoga, yada, yada, okay? We want to be the best officials that these kids are seeing, and we want to do a good job. So I'm going to go there because I'm going to practice doing what I do. Again, I reiterate, it's unpaid, okay? We go to meetings every other week, unpaid. Recently, I went to Sacramento on my own time to the California Interscholastic Federation for High Schools to go to a rules interpretation meeting. The meeting was less than my drive to Sacramento. I did it on my own time.
Sorry, your time is up.
Okay, you know how I feel.
Mayor?
I feel like
Yes,
2 minutes, but
Dan, question.
Dan, question for you. Would the $11,000 exemption work in your case?
I'm right in his neighborhood, yes.
Okay, so that would you be fine?
Yes, okay,
Okay.
but what I heard here at the meeting, it sounds like you guys are on the right track, and you want the same thing for us. Your proposal, lowering, fine.
But just wanted to clear, you're cool with the 11,000?
I'd be cool with the
Thank you.
11,000, sure.
Thank you.
Rich
Okay.
McCoy?
Thank you.
Thank you. As a businessman myself, I've paid my taxes for the last 30 years, a whole $150 as a sole proprietor. And I feel that it's been a worthwhile thing. The Councilman Constance's idea of having a threshold is a great idea and convenient, but I think there's some other things that need to be looked at. For example, in my business, many people get paid under the table, or they'll get paid $599 to get below the $10.99 threshold. It doesn't get reported. Also, if you're not considered to be a business, then other things could impact you, such as insurances. My insurance requires that I have an actual business license or I don't get covered. Also, checking accounts, business checking accounts, business phone services, even fictitious name filings and all that could be impacted by if you're not recognized by as a real business within the city. So I'm suggesting that even though you may have a threshold level that you want to set to keep a minimum level, that it still has some type of tag associated with it, that you are a business, so you can take advantage of all the services that other businesses offer to business-to-business activities, including resale licensing and so forth. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments. Let's get back to try to figure out what we do here today moving forward. So we need to at least do something to extend the period of the amnesty while we work on this. The May 31st was the recommendation. So we need to get that on the council agenda soon, right? March 5th
Okay.
is the target date for that. It's what we need to do today. And then the staff want some more time to think about what would happen if we drew the line at $11,000 by definition.
Yeah, I think we can come back with a response and proposal.
Yeah, 2 weeks would be good, at least. So let's
Yeah.
just try to see if we can get it done in 2 weeks.
If we were able to do that, Julia, would that be the 26th of February?
Yes, I
If
believe so.
so, with a one-week turnaround, we could actually get it to council on the same timeline
If things
as we were
worked
originally
out.
considering.
Okay.
And so I would be interested in following the line suggested by Councilor Consa to just create that category where it's 0, and then you could keep the exemption category. And if anybody wants to go to the trouble of saving themselves $112, they could file the exemption papers still, and we wouldn't have to change the process. We're really just changing the threshold for that, and there would still be some revenues for the city. We wouldn't have to give up the whole $270,000. Probably. I mean, we don't know
Probably.
the answer to
So-
that.
But I just want to, we will be asking people, even if we drop that threshold down to $11,000, we will be asking people to fill out the exemption form and send it back to us so it's a way for us to legitimately not bother them again. So, because we really need,
Right.
because otherwise we're going to keep getting that file from the state, and we really want them to fill it out and send it back to us. And that's why we've simplified the form, so hopefully they'll be able to do that for us.
And I think that's really important, because I know back in the past, I would get them over and over and over again, even after I got a business license. So getting the database part, I think, is going to be important for everybody. And we heard from at least one of the gentlemen that they thought they had it settled in '09, and 4 years later, we're still dealing with it. So I think that would be very helpful. So I'm going to try and put what the mayor just said into a motion, and that would be to to bring the extension of the amnesty program to the council on March 5th, and direct the staff to bring back to the Rules Committee an analysis or a proposal based on our discussion here of how we define a business as not being a business if you're under the poverty threshold, and an exemption program in that 2X category. And doing that I know you said you could probably do it in 2 weeks, but I want to make sure you have enough time. If you can get it done sooner, bring it in 2 weeks, but we'll give you 30 days.
Okay.
Make sure you have the time
Yeah,
to do it
we
right.
had some people out of the office, so
Right.
we'll see how it all flushes out. I'll talk to Ed and see where it lines up.
There's a second for that? A question for you, Councilmember Constant. The way you've described it, it's just a financial category, 11,000, 22,000. It's not, I'm getting to the other part of the recommendations is what to do about off-duty police officers engaged in secondary employment category, which we didn't talk about. Is that included or not included, or is that another issue?
So I think, Rick, didn't that part already get handled, or is that part of this as well?
Well, that's what part of this is.
Okay.
The problem is there are officers that make more than $22,000 a year, so they're doing business. So the only way to really address that specific issue is to carve out as an exemption secondary employment. And just on the theory that the employers of the secondary employment officers are the ones paying the business tax.
Right. Plus, they still, in a lot of situations, can instantly become a city employee if they're taking enforcement action and all the other things. So I guess I'll modify my motion so that that portion comes forward
On the 5th as well.
as well, yes.
Okay.
One question on that, was that okay with the seconder? Ed? All right. One question on that is, the recommendation is engage in secondary employment while wearing a San Jose Police Department uniform.
Yeah, that's the only exemption we're carving out is when they're, not if they're providing security services or if they're doing any kind of undercover work. It's where they're standing there and they visibly, to the person walking by, look like a police officer because they've got their full uniform on. And to the council member's point, they're ready to respond.
And I would just make sure that includes any of the department authorized uniforms, because there's a specific uniform that can be worn at schools, there's the regular blue uniform, so it's any official department recognized uniform.
Okay.
They look like a San Jose cop.
So,
And actually are.
if they have a choice of whether or not they wear a suit or a polo shirt with a uniform on it, I mean, how do we get into the record keeping, drawing the line issues? Is that going to create a more problem for the officers keeping track of that? Or
I think the police department already does that
Yeah.
in how they handle pay jobs, so I think that there'd be a way for
Yeah, and
the
we're
police
working
department-
directly with the secondary employment unit to help get that really firmed down and what that looks like. So we're working very closely with them. And so that then when they do their annual kind of process of being the secondary unit, that they understand when they would fall into the business tax category and when they wouldn't. So we're working very closely with the police department to get those fine details hammered out.
Okay, because I think there are some details in there, because there are police officers who have work that is not at all law enforcement.
Right.
A construction company or
Right,
something.
and that we're not proposing that they would be
So
exempt.
I would assume if they were running a construction company, that itself would be a business, and they've got their own licensing. It's not the same thing as being a pay job.
And if you see anyone putting a roof on in a uniform, there's probably a bigger problem. So
Yes.
the duty manual would cover that.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion was amended to add that to the work that could come to the council
Okay.
on the 5th. And then the last question was the last item you had, asking for direction on issuing of writing off the exemption processing fee retroactive back to January 1, 2009. And maybe that's a moot point now with the motion, but I at least wanted to give us a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I think perhaps the city attorney can come back with how that would fit, given the changes to definitions when we hear back from here in a couple weeks.
Okay, but I'm not interested in writing refund checks.
Me neither.
Or having our staff go through the cost of writing a $38 check.
Do you want this prospective from the application fee or the exemption fee?
Right, or at least prospective from January 1st of 2013, I think. Or maybe not. I don't know.
I
guess
mean,
we should talk about it.
there's two issues here. It's those that are participating in the amnesty program that would come forward and say they were falling into an exemption category. Right now, what we're saying is that they would need to pay those back past years of the exemption fees that they didn't pay. So that's revenue that's not yet been received that we would not receive, versus just saying that they wouldn't have to pay the exemption fee on a going forward basis because we're eliminating it entirely. So that's kind of the policy call in terms of trying to decide what to do with those folks that have never been in the system that are in that exemption category. Do we collect the fee from them in that period between January 2009 and December 2012?
What do you think we should do? You have a recommendation on that one?
Well, we were proposing to carve it out just for the sports officials, but the council members' issue, that does become an issue of carve-out specifically. So I think what we should do is look at that in the context of the 11,000 and the 12,000 and bring that whole issue back kind of in that bigger thing, because I think there's some issues we kind of need to look through the data.
And by extending the amnesty program, that gives us time to fix that one way or the other. Okay.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Mayor?
Yes.
And Julie, I want to let you know I did receive my City of San Jose amnesty tax program and my recycling bill
Yes.
yesterday, and that was very thorough and very easy to understand, so thank you whoever wrote
Good.
that.
Anything else? We have a motion, which I'm not going to repeat. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. Thank you very much. Good work. Next item is a request for Oak Ridge, Westville Oak Ridge Winter Walk as a city-sponsored special event. Motion is to approve. On a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. Next item is memorandum from Councilor Campos requesting action on possible sister city agreement with Guadalajara, Mexico. Councilor Campos, you want to speak to your memo?
Sure, I'm just here to answer questions, but there are some representatives from the Federación Jalisco that will be speaking under public comment. Wanted to bring this forward, given that this city of San Jose and Silicon Valley being the splitting image for Silicon Valley for the country of Mexico and for Latin America, it makes a lot of sense given the business ties and business that is already occurring, going back and forth from California, and particularly Silicon Valley and the state of Jalisco, that we formalize a sister city relationship with Guadalajara, and with that we get a number of benefits, some of them being visa exemptions. We've already have a Casa Jalisco that is here in downtown, opened about 3-4 months ago. It also operates as a business incubator, very similar to the Dublin, Ireland incubator that has been in existence. However, these folks have been doing it without any subsidy from the city of San Jose. It's a thriving organization and group, and so I'm asking for the council to agendize this for the 26th of February so that we can start the process of formalizing that sister city relationship.
Okay, thank you. I had some questions.
Sure.
Based on my previous conversations, I understand that the Jalisco group is pretty well organized and understands the process that we go through for sister city relationships. So it's not clear where we are in the process in terms of bringing it to the council, because looking at the policy, there's some steps we have to go through, and I don't know if those steps have been met yet or not. So I guess that's the question, is where are we in the process? We got the memo, we got the group, but our policy says there are things we want to have done before we put it in front of the council. I don't know if those have been done or not.
So the first step in the memo, from what I understand, and we've had extensive conversations with Sister Cities International, is to formally communicate with the government of the city of Jalisco to express interest, and that needs to, in order for that to happen, we have to send an official letter showing interest, and then that, from what I understand, allows San Jose to start engaging and getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, they've got a relatively complicated process when there's multiple sister cities involved, as there may be here, so I understand that. But we also have our own process that has some steps on it, which looks like they're well on their way to meeting those. So I think before I'd want to put it on the council agenda, I'd want to make sure our staff has had a chance to look at it to make sure we're complying with our own process and we're prepared to, put it on the council agenda for action, launching the official request to Guadalajara. Kim Walsh?
Kim Walsh. I'm the Director of Economic Development. The council does have a policy that was adopted in 2008 that outlines the steps that would be taken prior to the city council formally approving and signing an agreement with a potential sister city. And I think the really key point is that the process is driven by a sister city committee rather than the staff who can help enable. So I think a next step would be to start forming a sister city committee that would put together the work program and raise the funds. And if there's initial opening that we need to do with a government, we can certainly start doing that. I just want to say I think that Mexico is a really critically important partner, economic partner to San Jose. They're the third largest exporting partner from our city. And we'd love to find a way to be able to do more work with Guadalajara and Jalisco. I think the key challenge is going to be one of resources. We've sharply curtailed back any staff support to the existing sister cities that we have and dramatically curtailed the financial support. So if this is deemed a council priority, we'd want to make sure that we can adequately support it as a city so that it can be successful.
Well, one of the things in our policy is that the sister city committee has to raise the necessary funds to support the sister city activities that we play not a primary role, but a supporting role, so that, the activities are driven by the group, and I think they're well prepared to do that, from what I understand.
So, Mayor, if I may, if you look at the festivities that take place for the Dublin sister city relationship, every year there's a week that, activities are happening. The Federación Jalisco of Northern California, they've been doing these festivities for a number of years already. What this would do is it would formalize a relationship with with this city of activities we're already doing. There's already a committee in the form of the Federación that would be the host committee. They've agreed to do that. I'm Fernando Fonseca, who's the executive director of the organization. He could speak a little bit more as well in terms of the commitment from that organization to take on the responsibility of making this a thriving sister city relationship. In addition to, I think one of the things we also need to remind ourselves, and I could be wrong, but I believe Guadalajara was probably our first international flight destination, for this city. If you look at the population of Mexican immigrants and folks that have roots that come from Mexico, the state with the largest population is the state of Jalisco. If you look at the region going all the way down to the Monterey Bay and stretching, even up the peninsula, that population grows even more. So looking at this one, I think there's a lot of cultural benefits that we get, but I think the economic impact and formalizing that and also a way of quantifying it is something that would be in our city's best interest. And for those reasons, I decided to pursue formalizing this relationship.
Yeah, no, it looks like a great opportunity. I just want to make sure we give the staff time to do what the council policy tells them to do before they put it in front of the council. And it sounds to me like we need to have a meeting with the committee and our staff so that we can go through all of the issues, and so that when they do the memo for the council, they can say, yes, we've done X, Y, and Z that needs to be done. Because it certainly sounds like all the elements are in place, and people are excited, and that's a key part of it. Councilor Constant.
I think this is a great idea, and I think it just needs a few more boxes checked, and I think we're getting really close. And I think it would be good to have more sister cities that are really engaged. We know we have a bunch, but not all are engaged, and it sounds like this group will be very engaged based on their history of just community engagement here already. I know I've been working with a group in Korea to do a similar thing, and there is no group already engaged, so creating that group takes a lot of work. So I think you've already got a big leg up on it. So it's just a matter of working through the policy and getting it so that we get off on the right foot.
Yeah, what we've seen in the past is people have ideas for sister-city relationships, and it's a couple of people, and they can't get the local community organized. So that's already happened here. So we'll hear from Fernando Fonseca in a minute. Vice Mayor Nguyen.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to thank Councilmember Campos for bringing this forward. Obviously, you know, there's no doubt that we're going to see cultural and economic benefits deriving from this relationship. But, you know, I also have concern similar to Councilmember Constant and the mayor that it's important to check all the boxes because, you know, myself and a couple council members are working with a group of members from the Chinese community, the Chinese American community, to establish China Silicon Valley. And there's also been talk about developing a relationship with one of the cities in China. And so I like to learn how this process works, and I want to make sure that we're doing it right, because as we continue to see the economies are improving, I think there's our deep interest in Silicon Valley, especially here in San Jose. And so it would be great to have this opportunity to sort of educate the council on how you know, the process for establishing sister city work. And I think that this is a really good prime example for us to go back and look at the policy and see if we can check all the boxes.
Shall we hear from the committee representative, Fernando Fonseca?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Thank you for having us here and considering us to be part of the city. We are thrilled to be in the city of San Jose. As Councilmember Campos and Kim, we had met and we had these discussions prior to come to present to you, and how can we embrace what we already have done and what we're doing with community of Jalisco and the city of San Jose and the community in the Silicon Valley. We chose the city of San Jose because what it can offer to our people and mainly to the economics, and what has already done indirectly or directly with the city of Guadalajara. The government in Guadalajara, as well as we have present here, the Mexican consulate, are very supportive of doing the sister city and also working with us and bringing the culture and education to the city of San Jose. And as you mentioned, we have been operating for the last 5 years, doing events we call the Semana Jalisco, which we had the honor to be here last year in August, where we presented what we do through the culture and what people, the ladies that represent, that are born here, are also represent the culture of Jalisco and the city. So the main focus will be the trades that each city already has in connection. We want to formalize through and we're willing to manage and be able to support and be part of this organization and embrace the trades that already happening in Jalisco and Guadalajara and bring more opportunities. Just to mention, last week we had 50 people coming from San Luis Potosí we hosted our Casa Jalisco, and we're planning to do the same to Guadalajara. And what that means, that brings revenue, that brings money, that was tourists to the city of San Jose and to the downtown. And we chose downtown as a perfect location for what we're trying to accomplish, and we're also trying to help in any way possible to educate our community and outreach the city and the community of Santa Clara. With me is another Manuel. He also represents the board. If you have any questions for us, we're willing to answer any questions you may have, Mayor.
Okay.
So Mayor, if I may, I think what could be beneficial, so maybe this will we'll stop spinning our wheels. What boxes or what steps have we not made, in terms of showing that we're prepared? And I'm wondering, is it a formal letter of request from the Federación to the city expressing its responsibility to take on this role? So I thought we had checked all of our boxes and we were prepared to get to council and send a formal letter to the city of Guadalajara.
Well, I'm not sure what all boxes have been checked or haven't been checked, because we haven't heard about all of the work that's gone before here. So I'm just looking at the process. So it calls for things to be prepared and submitted to the city, demographic profile, 10-member documentation of the community support, program plan outlining objectives and funding sources, develop and implement programs, raise the necessary funds, whatever that means, and develop an organizational structure in compliance with state and federal regulations for nonprofit corporations. So when that's in place, then the staff says, okay, you guys are ready to launch, and we can put a memo in front of the council. It sounds like that's probably all in place and done, but I want to make sure staff has a chance to sit down, talk to people, and say, this is what we need before we ask staff to write a memo.
Yeah, we will do anything it takes to get this forward as soon as possible.
Good. We appreciate the enthusiasm. That's what makes these things work. What I've discovered is that if it's an idea for the government to do something, it doesn't work. It really requires the community. It's a community thing, and those are the successful ones, like the Dublin, which is our most successful. There's a lot of community support and enthusiasm, and that's the way the Sister City program is designed to work, people to people. Governments can do all kinds of things. The Sister City is kind of a special relationship that really depends on the people being engaged.
Great.
Well, we have all that in place, and so we'll be back.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just refer this to staff to, do whatever needs to be done, and then we'll get it on the council agenda. It sounds like they're already going to meet all the criteria to move ahead whenever that can be done, I think. Would that be what we will do, committee?
Yep.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to refer this to staff, and continue working on it, right?
Yep, we'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on another subject, I don't want to embarrass him, but my safety ed teacher is right over here. He taught me how to drive. So blame him.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you because I've seen the corners of his car.
His parallel parking is crazy.
I can show you his parking space. The inspection is not going to be pretty.
Next item is number 5. That's the 8th Annual Valley Senior Walk as a special council event.
Second.
Motion is to approve. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. Some community events sponsored by Council District 4 as city-sponsored events.
Second.
Motion is to approve. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. A Future Roots Cultural Festival for District 2 as a city-sponsored event.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion is to approve. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? That's approved. Taking us to open forum, I believe. Richard McCoy.
I want to talk about the senior center just outside our building here that when the food harvest truck comes by gets a ticket occasionally, and we've taken too long for the council to decide on this issue, and Councilman Constant has come up with an idea where we perhaps just give the harvest food van a placard or something to put in the window, so when the enforcement police come around and see that it's all right for them to park there, then they can deliver their food. And that's the whole thing, is you want to get the food to the seniors at the center without having to cost extra money to pay for citations plus getting them on their record. Thank you. I'd like to see just a fast movement on this. It's a simple problem. Get it solved in a hurry.
Martha O'Connell.
Okay, a month ago, we submitted a letter, and you guys said you were going to do something, and to quote the mayor, if government's involved, it doesn't get done. This is the area that they supplied for the truck, which is 34 feet long. It won't fit there. So we're pleading with you guys to pick one of these areas, either right there or right there, right next door to your building. The truck will be able to unload, because right now it's still dangerous. I have emails from Second Harvest and the director of John 23rd, and they both say a 34-foot truck is not going to fit in here. So it's been a month. Please do something. Just give them permission to park in one of those two places, or give them the placard, or do something, please. So we have faith in the government.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, maybe Ed, we can talk real quickly after this. One of the things that's been frustrating is we have a very regular delivery to one of our centers that is having serious issues getting in because they're trying to comply with the letter of the law. But we have our own rotunda, and we let people illegally park to load our rotunda when we have events, whether they're rented or city events, and they're right next to each other, and we're just not seeming to figure it out. So maybe we could spend a couple minutes and just get a solution.
About it. I'm sure that we don't allow illegally parked vehicles such as it is, but we'll work through the issues.
Okay. Unless you put in another card to speak, but we already talked about the refs, so I'm assuming that was on refs. We're not going to do it again. We did that.
Well, can I ask a question?
We did that ref thing and the business license tax. If there's something else, then we'll take it up. But otherwise, that was the agenda item for that.
The officials, this applies to youth sports as well, the officials that are by Parks and Recs officials and other organizations that run athletics, that have referees that are also getting paid.
The proposal is to treat everybody the same, just about dollar amounts. That's the proposal that we're considering. So, okay, that concludes the open forum, concludes our meeting. We're adjourned.